So far this season, it's been a not-so-civil war through the first 4 rounds of the Hooters Cup Series. But today, the battle is joined at Toledo Speedway. Hello, everybody. Mark Allen, happy that you've joined us for round number 5 of the Hooters Series, and it's a north versus south battle as the series has come north of the Mason-Dixon line for the first time this year. And Bill Hennessy, you know, we've been down south so far all season, and you'd think the southern boys would have been holding their own, but really it's been just the opposite.
I think the only thing the southern boys brought with them this go-around was the sunshine, because they lost 3 of the 4 skirmishes that advanced this race. Here, we're on home turf of all these drivers from Michigan, Ohio, and Illinois area, and these drivers are here to prove that they can win on their home turf.
Well, the wind is howling here. The question is, will drivers be howling when the race is over? The third member of our announce team is Roby Helm, who has a breakdown on the top qualifiers.
The north versus south battle is very evident in the top 10 qualifiers. We've got Dave Kuhlman on the pole position from Michigan. Outside of him, Matt Kenseth, although he's from Wisconsin, he is a Hooters Cup regular. In the top 10 qualifiers, we have 4 Hooters Cup drivers, 4 Iceman Series drivers, and 2 ASA drivers. It's going to be a very exciting and entertaining race. Back up to you, Mark and Bill.
And the Miller 200 is brought to you by Miller Beer. Reach out for what's out there. By Hooters Restaurants, home of world-famous chicken wings, and at the nearly world-famous Hooters Girls. Hooters Restaurants, delightfully tacky yet unrefined. By Jackaroo Sauce. On steaks, chicken, fish, or even French fries, Jackaroo Sauce brings the Outback taste to all your favorite foods. And by Hooterade, the new sports drink from Hooters that gives something back. The Grid and the Green are next. Don't go away. Welcome back to prime racing coverage at Toledo Speedway. 200 laps of action coming up in this fast half mile. Let's take a look at the top 10 qualifiers for this afternoon's race.
Hi, my name's Dave Kuhlman. I'm starting on the pole today's race. The sponsors are Right Tools, HJ's Prime Cut.
And here's a look at the starting grid for the race. David Kuhlman is on the pole with Matt Kenseth second. Scott Hansen is third. Fred Campbell is fourth. Gary St. Amant sits in the inside of row 3. Then sixth, it's Joe Knott. Seventh is Matt Hutter. Mike Garvey holds down the 8th spot. 9th is Ronnie Sanders. And 10th is Glenn Gulch.
And going 11th is Tim Felder. 12th is another local driver, Terry Cook. 13th is Dennis Berry. 14th is Tim Ice. 15th is Mike Fritz. 16th goes Jody Ridley, the man who's won those multiple championships in the All-Pro Series. 17th goes Scott Walters. 18th is the only Dodge in the field of Dick Anderson. 19th, the series champion Mario Goslin. And 20th is John Crow.
21st is Harold Fair. 22nd is Darrell Shelnut. Sitting at the 23rd spot is Stan Boyd. In the 24th spot is Darrell Brown. Sitting in row 13 is Randy Fox and Jimmy Cope. Row 14, coming from the last chance race, Freddie Query, the points leader, and Billy Bigley Jr.
And the alternates in the field following these drivers are Derek Kelly and Hal Goodson, the champ from the All-Pro Series. Dwayne Dempsey goes in the 16th row, and he's flanked by the Georgia driver, Larry Raines. 17th row, Shane Rice and Kenny Phillips came in through provisional starting berths. We're getting ready to go racing here for the Hooters Cup Miller 200 at the famed Toledo Speedway.
Now, David Kuhlman set fast time at 16.086 seconds. We mentioned that, and we'll mention that a couple of times because there is a $1,000 bonus that goes to the fastest driver in each race this season. It's from the Discount Auto Parts folks. And tonight, David Kuhlman, sponsored by Right Tools, takes home that extra cash. And so far this season, the Discount Auto Parts folks have paid out $2,000 to Freddie Query. He's been fast qualifier twice. Mario Goslin has sat on the pole one time.
Freddie Query was on the pole. These drivers have all found themselves in a position to pick up this bonus money, which is enticing drivers from all across the nation to come and race in this series.
And Jerry McCart was the other driver who picked up a pole position, so they're all $1,000 richer. And at the end of the season, they'll pay $10,000 to the man who wins the most poles. The field is formed. The safety car is already off the speedway on the backstretch. We're ready to go racing. David Kuhlman from the Iceman Series is getting ready to bring us up to green, and round number 5 is underway. And we have gotten through the first half lap cleanly as everybody's tiptoeing around the Toledo Speedway. A half mile with 18-degree banking. And Matt Kenseth, the winner at Anderson, has taken the early lead.
He has taken up where he left off. I really thought Dave Coleman would take the lead when they dropped the green flag starting from the pole. The driver who's a 4-time champion of the Flat Rock Speedway Series and finished second in points, and certainly is a driver to be reckoned with, dropped back lazily and looks like he's going to let Kenseth lead the early going.
And sitting in third spot with car number 70, the red number 70, and we'll call names and numbers for a while, is Fred Campbell, the man who won the season opening race at USA International Speedway. Fourth is Scott Hansen in the white and blue 53, and in the 97 in the fifth spot, Gary St. Amant.
St. Amant from the ASA, American Speed Association, certainly flexing his muscle here in qualifying, but right now he's just looking at the rear bumper of the driver who is riding in fourth place, Scott Hansen, an adversary of his out of the ASA. Down the back straightaway, Kenseth dives hard down to the bottom of the racetrack going into turn 3, which is the quick way around this facility. He's back on the front straightaway. A little further back, we're taking a look at several drivers.
These are drivers that advanced to the feature through qualifying races last night. Mario Goslin, the reigning series champion, and in a little bit of controversy after the most recent race in Anderson when he and Mike Garvey got together in a battle for the lead at the 3/4 mark. Darrell Shelnut is back in his familiar number 7. The two most recent races, he had been running the Jim Harris 00. He was involved with the crash with Goslin back at DeSoto Speedway, the second event of the season. Right behind him in the black 58 is Darrell Brown, who had a strong run going a couple of weeks ago at the Anderson Motor Speedway.
Goslin's machine may only be in competition this weekend. He says he may go back to the Jimmy Harris owned car next weekend when they race, rather 2 weeks from now, when they race down at New Smyrna.
The fast way around Toledo Speedway is right down on that bottom line. You can pass up high, as some of the drivers said, but it's not real likely as Campbell is putting good pressure on Kuhlman in the battle for second place.
He wants to move him up and on the racetrack and slip beneath him. We must remember, going back to the opening race of the season at Lakeland, Florida, Fred was the type of driver that kind of all of a sudden just appeared by magic. Never led any of the laps till in the closing stages of the event, but this time here at Toledo, he's right there in the forefront, certainly showing that he knows the quick way around the racetrack. Going to the high side is difficult at this speedway. He's going to do it the hard way to get by the second place runner and the man who sat on the pole.
Well, the fact that he's even willing to try to go upstairs this early in the going indicates that he thinks he's got the horsepower to do it. Further back at the pack,
Al Goodson there having a good battle. Goodson in the 16 car, the defending All-Pro champion, finds himself right there in front of Freddie Query in the 8 car.
Freddie Query had to advance through the last chance race. They only took 2 drivers from that. Query also had to come through the qualifiers at Anderson. It gives you an idea of just how competitive qualifying is in the Hooters Cup Series.
It seems like you go from first to last, last to first. Each week they kind of reverse order. Matt Kenseth has picked up a sponsor for the weekend here. That's Grease Lightning Cleaners, owned by Ken Alexander, another competitor in the series, helping sponsor the car. Ken didn't make the show this weekend and was a little disappointed and said, hey, look, carry my colors for me on your home turf up here around Toledo.
You know, 44 drivers attempted to make the show. 32 started, actually 34 started tonight's event. The 48 is Joe Knott, a driver who gave a lot of ASA fans some excitement in the season finale when he and Bob Seneker got together. Right behind him is Mike Garvey. Driver still, he's really trying to put Anderson behind him, but that was his best chance so far this season for a victory. He's had to work hard to get his way through the field. A decent qualifying effort, 8th. He's trying to get around Joe Knott now. This is a battle for 7th on the Speedway.
Our leaders will be coming up on some lap traffic. We start to pick them up as they head off the second quarter and down the back straightaway. They'll be coming up on some cars, which they'll try to put a lap down here within just a few circuits.
This is the season opening event at Toledo Speedway, a track that's got just about every major stock car touring series of note coming through here at some point in the season. ARCA, ASA, the Iceman Series. This is the anchor track for that series. And this is the beginning as we have a crash on the front straightaway that takes out
Harold Fair Jr. involved. Kenseth, your leaders involved in the crash now, the 68 car. Several cars going around. Most of these were lap cars involved in the crash, but your leader has sustained damage to the left rear quarter panel as cars start to drive away.
Dwayne Dempsey and Harold Fair, the number 71 car, also involved in the incident. Our first caution comes in the early going, and Matt Kenseth, one of those situations, wrong place, wrong time. You got to make a guess. And Kenseth guessed. The question is, the damage that he sustained, how serious is it?
Harold Fair sits there on the front straightaway, the wrecker getting ready to pick him up. Of course, this is the son of the legendary Harold Fair Sr., who raced for over 30 years and won all kinds of events in his span of racing. This driver here was looking forward to a good run with 8 super late model wins. He said this was going to be a so-so event for him, and it ended up being a not-so-good race after all.
Now, let's see if we can determine what happened here on the replay. Now, this is further back. Now, this is Kenseth. He sees the incident in front of him, got a little nudge from Kuhlman, and that's what got him all turned around and slid him into the incident. It doesn't look like, as we watch him circulate the speedway, that the damage is really too severe, but it certainly is for Fair.
On recollection, Fair went into the outside retaining wall and started collecting up other drivers as they advanced onto the scene. And then your leader, Kenseth, was involved. Kenseth actually stood on the brakes to keep from running into him and got hit in the tail.
And while they're repairing the broken cars, we'll take this chance to take our second break of the afternoon, actually, here at Toledo Speedway. Stay with us. We're really just getting warmed up, honest. Back at Toledo Speedway, we're under our first caution as the cleanup is now complete. The field is starting to form back up. I should say complete, not quite complete. Harold Fair's car is on the hook going off the track on the backstretch. But because Matt Kenseth was involved, I got a little bump there, got spun around. He will drop back in the field a little bit, so a tough break for a driver who was certainly showing the way early.
He could have lost a lot of track position, but he very, very quickly got his car turned around and headed back in the right direction and went back about midfield, but he almost collected up Harold Fair had he not stood on the binders and spun the car. Fair Jr., the sportsman champ at this racetrack back in '94. Disappointing for a guy who races before the hometown crowd. On the replay, we see him get nailed in the rear end there by the pole man, David Coleman. And Coleman goes to the outside, and we see the track virtually blocked here on the front straightaway.
Yeah. And so David Kuhlman will be our race leader as we go back to green here in just a moment. On the backstretch, Scott Hansen will be in the second spot. Right behind him is Gary St. Amant, and it's Joe Knott, Mike Garvey. Those are your top 5 cars. Glenn Gauld is right behind him. The green is back up, and we are back up to speed. The car down on the inside, Shane Rice, a lap car who at this moment has been able to get himself back on the tail end of the lead circuit. A single file restart except for Shane Rice.
Shane Rice, who is now trying to draw away from the leader to put himself in a very safe position so he can fully get the lap back. But I believe that Coleman is going to run him down. He just wants to see what kind of line Shane is running around this racetrack. He doesn't want to give up the position that he's holding, and that's in first place at the present time. Dwayne Dempsey showing a lot of smoke. Looks like he's going to pull into the back pits.
Part of that first incident, he'll pull it behind the wall. Tough break for the Florida driver. Came a long way to race here this afternoon.
This may be only for bragging rights. The yellow is flying once again here. A car is turned around down in the first quarter, one pinned against the outside retaining wall.
And that is Jimmy Cope is in, and there's a head-on collision between the two cars.
Now, don't
It's
jump to
not
conclusions
funny.
that this may not be the confrontation that you think it was, because both of these drivers have sustained suspension damage, especially Cope. Cope's car with a lot of suspension damage on it. He may not be happy, but if you look, the left front tire is all out of shape. But here's how it took place.
Here's how it happened. And basically, 3 wide going into turn 1. It doesn't look like Jimmy Cope really had any place to go. Rode up over the car in front of him, and then Scott Walters collected in the incident. That's a pretty hard lick into the wall. And Jimmy Cope looks to be okay, just sitting there collecting his thoughts and trying probably himself to figure out just exactly what happened. And Bill, exactly right. That right front, that left front tire is a mess.
He has no way to steer the car. The trailing arms are broken on the rear end. He's got a flat tire on the left rear. The left front tire rod's broken on that car. Lots of body damage. I'm surprised that Jimmy isn't feeling some effects of that crash, because he hit with a terrific impact on the outside retaining wall.
And after running second at Toledo Speedway in the second event of the year, Jimmy Cope has had nothing but bad luck. Got into an incident with Rick Crawford at Kenley. Then at Anderson, part of a big wreck on the front stretch that also KO'd John Crow and our series points leader Freddie Curry for a while. And now here, a very early casualty for our second yellow. If you're new to Hooters Cup racing, late model action at its best, primarily based in the southeast, but they'll come north of the Mason-Dixon line twice this year. The other visit into Indiana at Salem Speedway. Right at the moment, the series points leader is Freddie Curry by 31 markers over Matt Kenseth, who's running in the top 10 after getting turned around in the first yellow. Sitting in the third spot is Billy Bigley Jr., just 1 point behind Kenseth. Fourth is Jody Ridley, and fifth was the number 10 car that you just saw of Mario Goslin, as the work is being done on Scott Walters' car.
Scott Walters getting some repairs to his car. Looks like he's going to be able to go back into the competition. We notice that Jimmy Cope is out of his car looking over it, but I doubt very seriously getting back out. But you remember, the man that kept the points lead after a major crash at Anderson a couple of weeks ago was Freddie Curry. I really thought he was going to lose the points lead following that violent crash he was involved in. But he got the car repaired, they brought it back out, and he ran enough laps to salvage, continuing with the lead in the points race, which is so valuable, especially at the end of the year. Over $100,000 going to the winner of this series.
Toledo Speedway is home to, as we mentioned earlier, the Iceman Series. It's a series that runs somewhere between 17 and 20 races all throughout the Michigan, Indiana, Ohio area. And from last year's race here at Toledo, as you would expect, an Iceman driver did extremely well. Dennis Berry, who's driving the number 5 car today, won that event, and he's presently running in the 11th spot. That's a driver we'll keep our eye on throughout the course of the afternoon.
You talk about this racetrack. It's been in existence since 1960. It ran dirt its first year. In 61, it was paved. The man that runs the operation here is Sonny Adams. 36 years this racetrack has been asphalt, and Sonny is a competitor on his own right. Last year drove a dwarf car, little 32 Ford Coupe, said he had a lot of fun, but over the years I've got a lot of stories I can tell you about. He even had one race for A.J. Foyt on dirt.
And here we go, back to the green for the third time this afternoon. Dick Westfall waves it. He didn't even have to wave it. All he has to do is hold it up in the wind. Major, not a hurricane, but darn close to it, blowing through here today. And right now they're blowing around this speedway in 16.2-second laps. Randy Kuhlman is the man setting the pace. Sitting second is Scott Hansen. Third is Gary St. Amant, sitting in the 4th spot. Joe Nod. 5th is Mike Harvey. 6th, Glenn Galt. And 7th on the speedway is another driver from this part of the country, Matt Hutter, driving number 99. And look at the lead that Kuhlman has been able to pull out. He will overtake Dwayne Dempsey, who's continuing to circulate, trying to get points, but obviously will not have a good finish this afternoon.
Kuhlman's a driver of note. He's been running for a considerable amount of time. He's not one of these type drivers that has a lot a driver who knows how to win. He knows how to be conservative enough to save his car. But right now, he is just extremely quick for the Howell, Michigan driver. A little further back, that's Randy Fox. Fox making the show on time, and he's looking pretty strong here this afternoon.
Right behind him is the 7 of Daryl Shelnut. Immediately in front of them in the 11 is Ken Phillips, the Sandusky Speedway champ. And that's what happens when you take a touring series out of its natural area. You get a lot of drivers that had a lot of track familiarity, and it's really tough for the touring regulars to work their way through the field because these local guys have been running here for years. This is the battle for 5th on the track. Joe Knott in the 48, Mike Garvey in the Coors Light 42.
Garvey starting to put some pressure on Joe Knott now as they move through the first and second quarters, falling behind the shadows of the trees that ring this racetrack. Knott wants a little higher line coming off the corner, but doesn't open up the bottom of the racetrack where Garvey wants to go.
Mike Garvey had a very strong run going last week, then was involved in an incident. A little loose there, just getting into that turn. First time he's seen this racetrack, he's getting pressure from the 32 of Glenn Galt behind. Matt Kenseth trying to work his way back forward. Right in front of him, the 92 of Dick Anderson with that brand new Chrysler engine. He's just biding his time. There will be a mid-race break at lap 100. They'll take a 7-minute stop to change tires and refuel the cars. So some of these competitors may just be riding around right now.
The local drivers are doing exceedingly well because they have to adapt to the rules of the Hooters Cup. The normal rules for the Iceman Series, they can run 60% left side weight. In the Hooters Cup, they can only run 58% left side weight. They have to run with a 5-inch spoiler in Hooters Cup, where they could run with a 6-inch spoiler in the Iceman Series. So what this does is basically is unbalance the car from what they're accustomed to. It's amazing that they've got their cars to adapt as well as they are.
Freddie Query is mired back in the 27th position. He's the series points leader, coming off a 21st place finish at Anderson. That was his first time out of the top 5 this season. First time out of the top 10 as well, of course. He's trying to get around Larry Raines and is applying more than just a little bit of pressure. Raines is now up on the speedway, and that gives Query the chance to get by. The next driver he'll try to pass is Billy Bigley, and right before the race, the two of them were talking about some of the suspension changes they had tried in the last chance race, comparing notes. But there'll be no comparing of notes at this point, as Billy Bigley is running his more familiar number 28, now that David Elliott did not come to this race.
Well, Freddie was telling me, he said, be sure and tell the fans back home that, hey, it's not my race car, and it's not me every time we come out here and we can't make the show. He said, this time we had a real silly mistake. He said, we had the hood crushed down on the carburetor, and it actually had pushed the air cleaner down. The car couldn't breathe. We're set up. He says, I'll do well in the race. Just give me some time. I'll roll towards the front.
And David Coleman in that blue 24 is running a race all by himself right now. He has got a 2.5-second lead on second place Gary St. Amant, who has worked his way around Scott Hansen. So far, the northern drivers more than holding their own, as the battle for 4th is heating up on the track as well.
Coleman goes to the high side of the racetrack, going by the 07 driver, Scott Walters. Dives hard to corner. That's the highest we've seen him run on the racetrack all day long. He's actually saving his tires. Most of these drivers said at the 100-lap mark, though, they will change rubber. They said they have to just to buy the insurance and put themselves in a safe zone. Otherwise, they said, you know, the second 100 laps, we could very well burn the tires off these cars. They said the track changes drastically once you get about 50 laps on it. It becomes quite greasy and slick. Coleman obviously has read the track better than anyone so far.
Well, Coleman may not be a familiar name to fans in the Southeast, but up in this part of the country, the Iceman fans know him well. He finished second in the series points last year. Dick Anderson circulating the speedway in that Mopar red number 92, coming off his best finish of the year, a 6th last race at Anderson, and that was after nearly destroying his car in the last chance race.
Well, the early leader is now right behind Dick Anderson in the Mopar, the Dodge Avenger. Kenseth trying to work his way back towards the front. Back up with our leader, Coleman, he says he's only run about 4 ASA races. All of his experience primarily has come in the Iceman Series, where he had 3 wins last season. This is an older car, by the way. It's 4 years old.
And that's not necessarily all that old, because these chassis are extremely durable, and a lot of times there's no reason to really update them. If it's handling well, no matter what bodies you put on, you're going to knock body panels off periodically, but as long as the integrity of the chassis is good and there's nothing knocked out of shape, you can run these things forever.
Well, you can always put front and rear clips on them. You just got to worry about it ever getting diamond. Once it gets diamond, you can't ever fix it. So this car has basically been pretty square since it was originally built by the folks over at Ford City.
Well, this is certainly a diamond-studded performance so far by Kuhlman, who has just set a wonderful pace ever since taking the lead from Matt Kenseth in that first yellow. Now, underneath, Dick Anderson goes underneath the defending race champion, Dennis Berry. And now the traffic is hot and heavy as Scott Walters is on the low side. And look at that. Anderson says, I've got to get upstairs. He does it.
Whoa!
And Berry comes back and gives him a little bit of the same.
Anderson racing on the high side of the racetrack. Berry's car now with damage on the front end, and you see it lose its handling characteristics a little bit there. The car starting to slide around. He's basically got one big air dam across the front of the car since he has crushed the nose cap and has lost the right front fender, which is no more than fiberglass.
And Berry will be watching his mirror as Ronnie Sanders will now close up, and Berry's obviously got a handful out there. We're approaching halfway in this race when we'll take a 7-minute rest, and that will help someone like Dennis Berry a lot.
Berry has hurt his chances to repeat here now. He's basically just taken away every advantage that he had aerodynamically. The car now is a box.
Looking back in the field, Jody Ridley, a man, the only man, in fact, who has completed every single lap of every single race this year, has gotten around Fred Campbell, who's fading just a bit. The next man he'll set his sights on in the 56 is Tim Ice. Yes, Iceman Ice. He is a legend in late model in these parts.
Jody Ridley got into this race on the clock this time. Didn't have to go into a last chance qualifier, nor did he have to draw a provisional. Ridley right in there with the Iceman.
Aggressive, bold move by Ridley. He's trying to figure out if which way Ronnie Sanders is going to go, high or low.
Beat and bang now. The Iceman and the Howe factory car loses a position. That was tough racing right there. That was the North versus the South.
And that was a nice save by Tim Ice as well.
Did a phenomenal job there because he hung onto the car. He didn't let it dig in and loop into the outside retaining wall. He had to give up a position, but he's still out there running hard.
And now the 70 of Freddie Campbell, which just moments ago didn't seem to be running that well, is closed right on the back of Ridley. And he'll try the high side. We've seen him do this before in the first 10 laps of the race. The question is, can he make it stick? We'll keep an eye on that battle. Notice a little bit of damage to our race leader. The nose of that car is caved down a little, just ever so slightly. It doesn't appear that it's affecting the radiator or the oil cooler in any way.
Coleman has about a straightaway advantage over the second place runner at the present time. A little damage on the front of that car came as he was trying to avoid an accident, ran into the back of Kenseth earlier, and the yellow is flying.
On the speedway for the third time this afternoon as we're heading toward lap 100 and the break. And there is debris on the track, and they will be clearing it up. And while they're cleaning that up, we'll take this chance to clean up a couple of pieces of business here at Toledo Speedway, the Miller 200 on Prime. I'll tell you, folks, I grew up in this part of the country, and for it to be this pretty in mid-April is hard to believe. I mean, I just cannot believe how beautiful the weather is here at Toledo. It is 74 degrees.
At the top of the show, I told you we brought the sunshine from the south. Yesterday it rained here, and today it's beautiful.
And this is the way they're running as of this actually our third caution. David Kuhlman, Gary St. Amant, Scott Hansen, Joe Knott, and then the first series regular. Actually, Scott Hansen's a series regular too. I'm just so used to him in ASA, sitting there in third, and then Mike Garvey is fifth. And let's get a pit report from Roby Helm.
Report down here from the pit area. Jimmy Cope is working on both the left front corner and the left rear corner of his number 15 Miller Beer Chevrolet. And behind me, you can see Scott Walters and his crew still working on that automobile. They've been in and out of the pit area, but Cope is going to try to get his car back running again. And the reason why is with the large number of Iceman Series drivers in this event and non-United Speed Alliance Hooters Cup members, Jimmy Cope can get back out there, even though he might finish, say, 27th or so in the race. With the number of non-members in the event, he could very easily move up into the top 10. So that's why Cope is working hard to get his car back out on the speedway. Back up to you, Mark and Bill.
Well, Roby giving us the inside story on why Jimmy Cope is working so feverishly to get his car back on this extended caution due to debris on the racetrack. We've worked about 70 laps, Mark, here, and I tell you one thing, I thought the Pac-Man, Mr. Coleman, was about to eat up a lot of traffic there because he was in a position to start putting cars a lap down very, very quickly. But this yellow has put him back behind the front running pace car of ours here, which is a Chevrolet Monte Carlo. But there's our series champion right there, Mario Goslin.
Goslin, sporting the Jackaroo sauce colors, picked it up at the last race in Anderson and had a terrific run going, led the most laps to pick up 5 bonus points in addition to leading a lap. And when we talk about the points here, they're so important because the series champion at the end of the season will pick up $110,000. As a car's smoking going into turn 1, we're looking to see if an engine has erupted. But to continue our thought about the points and the championship, there is a $500,000 plus points fund that will be paid out at the end of the 1996 season. The richest in short track racing by far, Bill.
It certainly is. Considering how rich it is, it also lets you know just how favorable drivers are into running this. I've heard more drivers and car owners talk to me in the last 2 months asking for rules on the series and the payoff. Every one of them is astounded at how well this series pays, especially back 20th to 30th place.
Drivers in today's race, almost all of these races are run in the evening, so you'll forgive us if we say tonight when it's clearly the middle of the afternoon. But all the way back in the field, they'll still pay out $1,000 to the last place starter, and that's a winner's portion in most racetracks as the green flag has come back out, and David Kuhlman once again brings him back to the line. He's led most of this race as the field largely is in single file order. Randy Fox, a lap car, came into the pits a few moments ago for service.
Remember, we have a break at the halfway point. These drivers get to service these cars and bring them back out. One thing I'm noticing is that many of these drivers are being somewhat conservative, perhaps, in this first 100 laps, realizing that, hey, so I might be the halfway leader, but they pay the big money when they drop the checkered flag. And the car that was smoking earlier has parked itself up on the outside of turn 3 and now made itself into the pits. That's the 21 car.
Of Tim Felber. He, just before the restart, started to smoke badly. There's apparently some problems either with the tire on the right side or the engine. His crew is taking care of that. But right now, Kuhlman is taking care of business up front. Once again, a huge lead. Let's go to the pits.
Tim Felber is in the pit area with car number 21. They're going to the right front corner of the car, and they're having some trouble getting that right front tire off of the car. Got a brand new Goodyear Eagle standing by. Now they're rolling it back across pit wall, so apparently they're going to be leaving the right front tire on that was on the car. So perhaps some strip lug nuts or something. We'll get with the crew chief and give you a report in just a second.
Felber from Wausau, Michigan, comes out almost in front of your leaders as he comes off the short track that's within this half-mile oval. The 3-time track champion at Oswego and the 95 Triple Crown champ rejoins the race.
Looking at action a little further in the pack, we continue to watch Mario Goslin. Goslin into 10. Dennis Berry, you saw a little bit earlier, his caution's out again. Caution out for the 4th time
car down on the bottom
32.
of the racetrack.
Yeah, Glenn Galt has spun into the infield down in turn number 4. Glenn Galt, car number 32, our 4th yellow.
He's down on the grassy part of the racetrack, and it may be a little slick down there, and perhaps he can't drive out. Glenn Galt in the Orange Blossom Special finds himself looping at the bottom of the racetrack.
And that's USAR Speedway, folks. We want to make sure we get that right for all the fans up in that part of the country. Oswego is over in New York State. You see, we do know our racetracks up here in the booth. Sometimes we just can't read our own handwriting. Let's go to the pits in Roby Helm.
And Mark and Bill, we're getting a report from some of the drivers from their crew chiefs, talking to them on the radio. We have a very strong wind here today, blowing from turn 2 across the speedway to turn 4, and they're reporting that 30+ mile-an-hour wind is making the car push coming off the 4th turn, and that might have been a contributing factor to Glenn Galt's spin up in turn 4.
And while they take care of Glenn Galt's problems up in turn number 4, we'll take this opportunity to slip a little bit of commerce in, watch the fine folks who support these programs, and we'll be back with more from Toledo Speedway right after this. In one more lap, we'll be going back to green here at Toledo Speedway. 4 cautions so far, and we've got 84 laps on the book. And look at Dennis Berry. They have done some work to that car, and he is shedding body panels like crazy.
Unfortunately for him, I don't believe he's going to see a checkered flag unless something drastically changes here, and we haven't even reached the halfway point. Another driver who has some damage on the front of his car that you noticed as you peered out of the window a few seconds ago is the defending series champion. Goslin with some problems on his car as the green flag now waves.
Actually, the yellow waves. They were getting ready to turn the field loose, and then race control decided to hold the cars, and everybody's hanging on here, and there are no problems. Now, I'll tell you, that is a tough thing when you're all set to go, when they say, whoa.
It sure is, because on our monitor here in the booth, it looked like he was waving the green flag, and actually we peer out the window and it's yellow, and it certainly surprised me, Mark.
Well, they had what they believed was Daryl Shelnut just about stalled going into turn 2, and if they turned the field loose right there, that would have been a mess. Shelnut did get his car fired, pulling around the racetrack, and we'll let the safety car reform the field, and then we'll go back to action. Bill, so far I've been fairly impressed with a lot of drivers who are competing for the first time this year anyplace. They've pretty much been able to keep their wits about them.
Well, I believe this is because this is their home track. It may be the first time in the Hooters series, but for them, they've been somewhat regular here. The drivers who are having a tough time for the first time are guys like Freddie Query back there, Raines being one of them, Mario Goslin being one of them, and Billy Bigley. I believe that they're they want to see everything go by this track very, very quickly and get out of here. And down the back straightaway, the 24 car, David Kuhlman, getting ready to go green again. 86 laps have been run so far, and the green is now waving.
And David Kuhlman continues to do what he's done so far ever since about lap number 14. He is just saying, okay, boys, if you want it, you're going to have to come get it. But lurking in the back of everybody's mind who is chasing him is the fact that within about 14 laps, we're going to go red. All the cars are going to come to the pits, and the drivers and teams that would like to make some adjustments will have the opportunity then. Sitting in the second spot is Gary St. Amant, as you saw in the top 5 just a few moments ago. Scott Hansen is 3rd, 4th is Joe Knott, and 5th is Mike Garvey. But let's give a call to Dick Anderson, who's moved up nicely. Anderson qualified back in 18th position, and he is up to 7th.
Anderson working his way towards the front, and we have yet to reach the halfway juncture of this event. As they head down the back straightaway, you see the distance all the way back to 4th place, which is Scott Hansen. The car that's riding in 5th on the racetrack is actually a lap down, and that is Tim Felver. He's right in front of Mike Garvey, the 5th place runner.
8 laps to halfway. and a $1,000 bonus from the Country Fit Meats people. And right now it looks like that's going to go to Randy Kuhlman. The 99 is Matt Hutter. The 70 is Freddie Campbell, who qualified in the top 4 but has been falling back ever since.
Matt Hutter, of course, builds the very powerful engines that run over the Busch Grand National Series, and many other sanctioning bodies use his power plants. And Hutter having a good run here this afternoon at Toledo, Ohio.
5 laps to go to halfway. And Hutter and Campbell know each other well. They've raced together here in the upper Midwest for a number of years. If you're a regular viewer of the Hooters Cup Series, you might say to yourself, now wait a minute, I remember that Hutter has been in the 09 car. Well, down south, Wayne Niedecken runs the 99 car, but since he didn't come here, the opportunity presented itself for Matt Hutter to carry the 99, the normal number that he uses, and he opted to do just that. Just a couple of laps now to halfway, and $1,000 to, I think we can probably safely say right at this moment, Mr. Kuhlman. As Scott Hansen, who has won 3 races here in 6 ASA starts, is also running extremely well, and that is a driver that we'll surely be watching after the mid-race break.
One thing you must remember, Hansen right now has a car that has no scars on it. He has skirmished with no one. If he can get his chassis dialed in on the second go-round and the white flag is waving, he will be a threat.
So Hansen will not take the halfway money, but that $1,000, which is a nice piece of change, is going to go to Randy Kuhlman, who is coming through turn 3 and into turn 4, and he will take halfway and $1,000. A dominating performance in the first half of this event for this Howell, Michigan driver. So far, just 4 cautions, and most of the situations have been minor, which I think is a real tribute to the drivers, given what Roby mentioned about how hard the wind is blowing out there. Not only are they dealing with a bunch of other maniacs out there within a foot or 2 of them, but they've got to deal with a real nasty crosswind. Dick Westfall is sending the cars to the pits the next time by, as everyone will get that 7-minute break to work on their machines.
He's pointing them onto the short oval, which is inside of this half-mile facility. Kuhlman going to his crew, which is up on the outside retaining wall of the short track. These drivers will be strewn out around this little short track on the inside. They'll get the assistance that they need during this break. And these drivers, of course, right now, this is a chance for them to relax a little bit.
Well, we're going to put somebody to work here because he's down in Action Central and will be during this red flag, and that's Roby Helm. Roby, what do you got for us?
Well, Mark and Bill, it's a feeding frenzy down here in the pit area. The drivers are bringing the cars on pit road at this time, and the crews have just a very short few minutes to make whatever changes they want to make to the car as far as tire changes. I'm sure they'll all take on fuel and top off the fuel tanks, but they do have enough time if they really want to change shocks and springs, but they're going to have to do it in a hurry. If we can get our photographer to just to kind of pan through the pit area here, you can see some of the work going on in the automobiles right now as the crews go to work. And these crews, especially the Jackman here at Toledo Speedway, they have a small quarter-mile oval in the middle of this track. That's where the pits are set up. You can see the cars up on the outside of the pit road. They are up on the banking, and to get the left side of these cars up in the air, the Jackman really has to work hard to get it up on the banking. So they're working on left side tires, right side tires. If we could pan over to my right and look, some of the leaders are over here. Matt Kenseth in the 68 car, he was involved in an earlier accident leading the race, and he said that the car was fine, but they are there repairing some of the damage. Mario Gosselin has some damage on his car as well, so those crews are able to take some of the sheet metal off that might be dangling from the car. Some of the other leaders are in, as we got Dave Kuhlman in the 24 car. As his crew looks over his machine, they said the car is working well except for the push due to the wind coming off of turn 4. We also have in the pit Scott Hansen in the 53 car. We do have some of the cars that are pitted behind the oval in the infield. They are back in the hole, so to speak, on the back straightaway. There's a few cars pitted over there. Gary St. Amant, who is one of our front runners, he also is in there. So a lot of activity going on here. The drivers are not complaining too much about handling problems with the cars, just that we've had a few bumps and bangs. There's some sheet metal that's been torn off of some cars. Dennis Berry, he's just about got the whole right front corner torn off of his number 5 car. So he's been in the pits and he's out of the car now. now, walking around, looking it over. Jody Ridley is in. Look for Jody Ridley in the second half of the race. So that's the story from the pits. Back up to you, Mark and Bill.
All right, thank you, Roby. And maybe if you get a chance, we get down there and talk to some of these drivers as they climb out of their cars. One of those rare opportunities in late model racing to get the strategy from the men themselves as the work continues.
While a number of the drivers have elected to climb out of their car because most of these drivers are chassis experts, Freddie Query has elected to remain in his. So while he takes a break from the action,
we'll tell you that the Miller 200 is brought to you by Jackaroo Sauce on steaks, chicken, fish, or even French fries. Jackaroo Sauce brings the Outback taste to all your favorite foods. And by Goodyear Tires, #1 in racing, #1 in tires. And we'll be back as the feverish work continues on the field right after this. In 120 seconds, the entire field must be back on the racetrack. A couple of cars have already pulled off pit road, satisfied with the work they've done. One of the very first, Scott Hansen, back out there. So quick work by his crew as we're getting ready to go. Another 100 laps that will pay $15,000 to the winner at the end of it. If you're just joining our telecast, David Kuhlman has been leading since lap 14. Gary St. Amant is second. Scott Hansen sits in the third spot. Joe Knott is fourth. And Mike Garvey sits fifth.
Looks like the North is winning the battle. Dick Anderson's back there in sixth. Matt Kenseth's in seventh. And eighth is Matt Hutter. That's Fred Campbell, the winner down at Lakeland. And 10th is Ronnie Sanders out of Fayetteville, Georgia.
Ronnie
We're not doing too well from everybody down south.
But having a very quiet but strong run so far. Any of the Southern regulars that are having a good run, you got to give them a lot of credit because, as we've mentioned, this is a home track for 12 drivers that are in this field, none of them from the Southern Hooters Tour.
No, but I'll tell you one thing. They are certainly proving that the home track advantage is well worth it.
Now here is the rest of the 11 through 20 as we have it unofficially.
Sitting in the Sanders.
Yeah, sitting in the 11th spot is Tim Ice. Right behind him is Jody Ridley. Then it's Darrell Brown, Freddie Query, Hal Goodson, Terry Cook in the 144 car.
Mike Fritz in the 14. The 38 is John Crow, and there's a driver we haven't mentioned at all this afternoon.
Having a very difficult season as the defending Rookie of the Year and is actively looking for sponsorship for the rest of 1996. Sitting in the 19th spot is Larry Raines, and then 20th is Billy Bigley. A number of those drivers had to run the qualifying races or the last chance race here earlier today and still have not quite got the handle on this racetrack. And now the question will be, Bill, just to interrupt you here for a second now, if you're sitting back there and you're not running well, what are some of those major adjustments you can make? Maybe Roby can help fill us in on that right now as we head to the pits.
And down here in the pits, we got a report watching Dave Kuhlman's pit. They did a lot of body work on the front end of the car. They had to tape the hood down just as a precaution. They got into that earlier tangle that took out Matt Kenseth earlier in the race. They reported that the air box to the radiator is good, clean, and open, so there's no problems there. Scott Hansen was the first one out of the pits. He likes the race car he has. They did not make any major changes to the car. He said he's just riding, so look for Scott Hansen in the second half of the Miller 200.
There you can see the tape job.
What Roby's basically saying is that many of these drivers saw the first 100 laps as just a way to get the car dialed in, have some fresh tires, and the real payoff is the second 100 laps. This is going to be much like what we saw at Anderson, where all the action takes place in the second 100 laps of competition.
For some of our viewers who may be new to the split format competition, what are some of the subtle adjustments drivers and crews could make to get their car handling better?
Well, with the tires, they could change the tire stagger, which means one tire on the right side is a little bigger than the one on the left. The stagger on most of these cars is 2 inches on the front, 2.5 inches on the rear. You could actually pull a spring or a shock off the car during the 7-minute stop to change the handling characteristics a little bit. The other thing you possibly could do is jack some weight around on the car. car. But I really believe that most of these drivers had a setup that was very favorable to this racetrack, especially those who've raced here in the past. It's the guys from outside who are having to really work hard to get to the front.
And the last driver to pull onto the track was Mario Goslin. He's minus part of his bumper and his right front quarter panel. And he is having a tough night. The fellow who went around in contact with Mike Garvey at the last race in a battle for the lead fell back to 8th, but was able to rally into the top 5 and has actually been able to insinuate himself back into the championship chase a little bit. Now, from the drivers in the top 5 of last year, coming into this race, Mario Goslin was 127 points behind Freddie Query. Mike Garvey, 225 down. Darrell Shelnut over 200 points behind. John Crow about 200 points behind. And Dick Anderson over 200 points behind. So just because you had success last year doesn't mean you're having any luck at all in 1996.
Well, Dick Anderson's looking for some good luck. He's won a couple of races down in Florida outside the series, but he hasn't scored in this racetrack in over a year, in this series rather.
And before we go back racing, let's go back to the pits.
Mark and Bill, you were talking about the point situation. One of our point leaders in the Hooters Cup Series, Billy Bigley, who is 3rd in the points, he has not come out of the pit area. They have the car up on jack stands. They have a leaking pinion seal under the car, and Bill Bigley Jr. and his crew both are underneath the car trying to fix that problem.
And that will hurt him significantly. He was only 32 points out of the series lead.
Well, folks around Toledo would know what a pinion seal was, because Spicer Industries makes a lot of Dana products, which makes the gears for a lot of race cars. But the pinion seal is the main drive shaft seal as it goes into the rear end.
Dennis Berry getting instructions from Hooters officials as to where he should drop into the line. A driver whose car looks a lot like Mario Goslin. No, not in the paint scheme, but certainly in the amount of damage to this point. 1 lap. Next time by, we go back green. The cars down on the inside of the track are lapped cars. High side are the race leaders. Resetting the top 5 for you once again. David Kuhlman has picked up the halfway bonus. A country fed meets $1,000. Second is Gary St. Amant. Third, Scott Hansen. Fourth, Joe Knott. And fifth, Mike Garvey. Right behind them, the driver who's made the best move through this field in the first half of the race, Dick Anderson. So let's see what happens now. Let's see what the adjustments were and how they play out as Nick Westphal waves the green, and the second half of the Miller 200 is underway. Is with Randy Fox between first and second place cars. How long will it take Gary St. Amant or Scott Hansen, for that matter, to get by and give some pressure to Kuhlman, who has seen absolutely no pressure since he took the lead?
In the first 100 laps, maybe it didn't make a difference, but it's now making a difference. Gary St. Amant wants to get by. Randy Hondo Fox rolls up to the high side of the racetrack, giving chase to our leader going into turn 3. He goes by Fox, and along comes several other drivers, including Scott Hansen.
Field sorting itself out now. Anderson is trying to catch up to Mike Garvey. These are two guys who run all the time, as this is the battle for second, with St. Amant and Hansen, two ASA regulars. Now, Hansen no longer the American Speed Association driver, running full-time with the Hooters Series, likes the $15,000 to win available in every race. Let's get a quick report from the pits.
And another casualty after the halfway pit stop. Matt Hutter in car number 99, one of our early front runners. They had the car up on the jack, and the asphalt is a little bit soft here in the pit area. The jack sunk down in the asphalt. The car fell off the jack, and they have broken the right front hub. They're in the process of replacing it now in hopes of getting them back out on the speedway. Back up to you, Mark and Bill.
That's a shame for Matt Hutter to break a hub on the right front side. It'll take quite some time for him to be able to replace that, and maybe even just get back there and have to salvage a finish.
48 is Joe Knott, 42 Mike Garvey. Fans of ASA know that Knott and Bob Seneker had a classic finish at the season finale at Jennerstown Speedway last year. They were both sideways coming across the finish line, and not only that, they had Seneker up on the wall. Seneker won the race, so he didn't mind too awfully much, but it was a classic finish. Look at the battle for second. It has been joined as Scott Hansen has gotten underneath Gary St. Amant. Now, can he chase down Kuhlman? That's the big question. He's 15 car lengths behind.
Hansen, a very relaxed race driver, started his pass going into turn 1 over a lap ago, and it finally culminated with a pass coming out of turn 4. But Scott Hansen now realizes this is a 100-lap sprint race. We can't allow Coleman to run away at this juncture.
In talking with Scott Hansen, he says, I've really had to make an adjustment to this series as there's a big wreck in turn 2. A number of cars involved as the leaders slow down. Shane Rice is one of them, Mike Fritz another, and Darrell Brown are the 3 cars that I can see from my vantage point. Another car showing some smoke from, I think, previous problems continues to be Tim Felver, who got back out on the track. But look at that, Shane Rice, who has had his share of tough luck this season, getting help from a veteran late model crew chief and champion in his own right, Dave Mater. But there's nothing that a crew chief can tell a driver in this situation.
3 cars strode along the back straightaway. Fritz is going to try to drive away. Shane Rice looks like he may be able to get a push and get back around to the pits as he just turned his car around. The Darrell Brown car resting down on the grass looks like it's not going to be able to drive away. So the yellow is waving once again here at Toledo, Ohio, and this is the Miller 200. And another driver who has gone to the pits is Mike Garvey. Garvey is on the pit lane now with problems with the car that was running in the top 5.
In fact, the hood is up on that Coors Light Monte Carlo, and we'll keep an eye on that. That is just the kind of luck that Mike Garvey has had this year. He has gone a lap down, 2 laps down now. Let's take another look at what triggered our 5th caution of the afternoon.
Boy, Shane Rice on the bottom of the racetrack hooked it and headed across the racetrack, and everybody else behind him trying to take evasive action in that big cloud of dust, and that's when Darrell Brown got involved with Mike Fritz.
And I don't think Shane hit a thing.
Oh, he didn't hit anything. What he did was he planted that left front tire down on the flat part of the racetrack, and there's so much banking here that when you hook it back to the right, the car will take a set and head up the racetrack, and then he just did a 360 loop.
Now, the same cannot be said for Mike Fritz. Obvious damage to his Janet King car. Shane Rice stalled it, got it back going again. He'll continue on, but he has lost a couple of laps. And I'll tell you what, we talked about perseverance that Roby did earlier in the race in the pits. Jimmy Cope is back in the race. 100 laps down, but back in the show.
Well, Jimmy Cope's back out there. Garvey's still having his problems. Everybody's under the hood of that car.
Well, let's check back in the pits with Roby.
And the report from Mike Garvey's pit, the car has slung an accessory belt. They're putting a new belt on it now, but the belt that came off is the one that drives the water pump, the oil pump, everything you need to keep that engine running. So that's a critical piece of machinery, just a small $20 piece of drive sump belt coming off of Mike Garvey's number 42 Coors Light Silver Bullet.
What he is talking about is the Gilmer drive belt. It's a little belt with looks like little teeth on it, and that's what he has slung off. And a lot of times that'll happen when a rock or something comes up and goes around the pulley. It'll sling the belt off.
There is a new race series coming up next weekend. It's an exhibition race to start. It's the USA Pro Cup Budweiser 250 from the beautiful USA International Speedway down in Lakeland, Florida. And Bill, this is a brand new sportsman series with the Hooters Cup. Folks, explain a little bit about it.
These cars are former Busch and Winston Cup type cars, 110-inch, 105-inch wheelbase automobiles with primarily 9-to-1 flat top piston late model stock car type of motors with 2-barrel carburetors. I imagine down there they'll be running in excess of 130-mile-an-hour laps on that 3/4-mile facility. This is a race that I personally would like to be able to go to and see the action because we're going to see some rising stars.
While the stricken machines of Mike Fritz and Darrell Brown are attended to in turn 2, we'll attend to a little bit of business and return to Toledo Speedway in action here on Prime. The crew just came back out here at Toledo Speedway. And Randy Kuhlman, David Kuhlman, has done his usual job yet again, as there's some smoke. The smoke that you see on your screen is coming from the 21 of Tim Felver, who just moved over so Scott Hansen could have a free racetrack to go after our race leader. And the question is, Bill, as we watch Felver in that 21 car just going out of the screen to the right, is he putting any fluid down on the track that could be a problem for other drivers?
Primarily, it's just the back pressure out of the engine when he lets off the accelerator into the straightaway, tags the brakes to get into the corner. What's happening is it's just kind of backing up, coming through the breathers. He's not really putting any oil down. If he was, I imagine we'd have one driver out there complaining, and that'd be the guy right behind him. Right now, Kuhlman is looking extremely strong. Scott Hansen gives him chase.
Let's go to the pits for this quick update.
And standing by with Dave Mader III, Shane Rice, his crew chief. Did Shane say what happened on the back straightaway?
Well, a couple of cars got together in front of him, Roby, and we pretty much dodged everything, but we killed the motor and couldn't get it fired back up, so that's a shame. We wouldn't have lost a lap there. We could have just got it back fired. But like I said, there was a couple of the boys in front of them got together, and at least we dodged it. A couple of them wasn't so fortunate.
Well, Dave, working with a young driver, he's getting a lot of good seat time out here with the competition we have here.
Man, I tell you, this is a great series. I'm proud to be a part of it. In a way, I'd much rather be driving, of course, but I'm having fun doing this side of it. You know, I'm trying to enjoy myself and just be a part of it. I'm glad to be a part of it.
Dave Mader, a fine champion in his own right in the sport of late model racing. Back up to you, Bill and Mark.
The man on the charge continues to be Dick Anderson. Now, he picked up a position when Mike Garvey went to the pits. He's sitting in fourth. And Gibbons Aries St. Amant, all he can handle, going downstairs on him. Can he make the move in turn 3 this time? Looks like he's got the edge, Bill. A great move by a veteran driver. That car looks like it's handling great.
He may be trying to avenge this racetrack. Remember, this is where he was injured in the pits last year. And this guy has gone through a lot of recovery. I imagine he'd like to go to victory lane and stand there and tell everybody I beat the track that basically took away my career. He has fought back valiantly.
And what Bill is talking about is after the Hooters Cup race was through here last October, a support race was running in a freak accident. A car came flying into the pits and landed on Dick and his car owner, Buddy Foster. Buddy Foster suffered some nasty injuries, as well as Dick Anderson. It's both taken them some time to heal, but it also did something for Dick Anderson. He said that it gave him a perspective, not just on racing, but on life. And he said, I dedicated myself more to racing this year than ever before because I almost lost what I wanted the most.
Well, he certainly is running hard here. I'd love to see him be able to do well, but he's got two formidable competitors in front of him. As we look a little further back, and there's Matt Kenseth, the winner, and Anderson riding in 5th place. They're coming up on some heavy traffic.
That is the battle for 3rd, 4th, and 5th on the Speedway. Right behind him, Freddie Campbell, the winner of the season opener, sits back there in the 6th spot, and Tim Ice in the 56 is 7th. Behind him, Jody Ridley. And now look at this, Kenseth underneath Joe Knott. There will be a change in position, and Knott will lose 3 spots just like that. Get up on the high side of the track. He'll lose 4 as Jody Ridley goes by. Now we'll keep an eye on Knott's car to see if anything's wrong. We think he just got up out of the groove, and once you do that, with this much close racing, you're going to pay for it.
Dick Anderson now working hard on Dennis Berry. Takes the Dodge Avenger up to the high side. He's going to try to move him one way or the other, but he's getting the move over flag. He may be able to pass him getting into turn 1, but he's doing it the hard way on the outside.
Dennis Berry, the defending race champion, who attempted to make the season opener down in Lakeland, Florida. But I'll tell you what, folks, with 84 cars down there, it was a who's who of late model racing. Just about every great driver in the country attempted to make that show, and it was no shame that Dennis Berry didn't.
Behind Dick Anderson is Matt Kenseth. Kenseth is really making a charge. Kenseth is up to 4th place and looking strong.
Dick Anderson having his strongest run this late in a race this year. He led 128 laps at Kenley right from the green flag, only to have his motor go up. This time he's got brand new cylinder heads on that, and he is storming forward. He is trying to reel in second place Scott Hansen, while Matt Kenseth now is trying to pull away from Freddie Campbell, who seems to be getting a bit stronger the more laps go on those tires. Let's go to the pits in Roby.
And we're down here in Dick Anderson's pit with crew chief Frankie Grill. He's just moved into third spot, Frankie. How's he say the car's performing? Has he got enough to get to the front?
We think so. If we can just get a couple of breaks here, we'll be fine. The car's been really good the whole race. We're just tickle pink, especially for the old Dodge motor with Joey Harrington.
What about Dick's attitude this week? He and Buddy Foster both had a rough time here last year. Do they feel like this place owes them one?
I didn't hear a word you said.
Last year, it seemed like that Dick and Buddy Foster with the problems they had here. Do they kind of feel like this place owes them one?
We think we've got the motor program in hand now, and everything's coming together for us. We're starting to finish races and run good like we always can, and we're looking forward to a good season, really.
That's a report from Dick Anderson's pit. Back up to you, Mark and Bill.
Of all the car owners in the series, Dick Anderson seems to be the guy with the most favorable car owner, a guy that is really committed to the series and to Dick Anderson's racing program with the Dodge, and that is the Florida automobile dealer, Buddy Foster.
And we don't want to insinuate in any way, shape, or form that other owners are not committed, but Buddy just has a love with this kind of racing that when you talk to him, it just comes out in his voice. He loves Dick Anderson. He and Dick have worked together. They work together well. They complement each other's personalities well, and it's always a pleasure to talk to someone who has such a commitment. He doesn't necessarily he doesn't want to be a Winston Cup car owner with all the attention that goes. He's happy right where he is.
Well, one of the reasons I like this series so much is we don't have a lot of public relations people answering questions for the drivers. We get to talk to the real men who drive the cars, and Buddy Foster's a very vocal individual, but he could have walked away from the sport after receiving those injuries at this racetrack last year and just said, hey, I'm giving this up. This is much too costly personally.
You notice that 97 is fading ever so slightly. Gary St. Amant falling back, but David Kuhlman continues to have things his way. Scott Hansen second. Dick Anderson, of course, we've been talking about him recently, is third. Matt Kenseth running fourth. And Freddie Campbell is just sitting right there in the top five. That's just about what he did at Lakeland. And when other people started to have problems, that's when he came to the fore. The 37 is Larry Raines, a Southern campaigner who finished 8th in the points last year. John Crow, the Rookie of the Year last year in 38, just got passed by Mario Goslin, who's missing a little bit of his body, but seems to be running pretty well. The 16 car is the Hooterade machine of Hal Goodson. Now, Hooterade is a sports preservative drink that replaces fluids and electrolytes during periods of physical activities. But the Hooterade folks also donate a portion of the proceeds from this product to charity. And some of the charities that have benefited over the years are the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation, Muscular Dystrophy, and Special Olympics. The slogan for the Hooterade drink is the drink that puts something back, and that is true in so many, many ways. It's available at many smart retailers. If it's not in your store, hey, just go ask for it. Make them carry it. The 144, Terry Cook, a local campaigner up here who's having a pretty solid run. As we work our way back in the field a little bit, this gives us a chance to talk about some of the other drivers competing, as Hal Goodson trying to pick off some positions. Did not qualify well, but has done well as Smoker in turn one has triggered a yellow. And some very heads-up driving as Scott Walters. Looks like the engine let go at just the point where a lot of people could have headed up toward the fence real easily.
On the yellow wave just beyond lap 150 here at Toledo, Ohio, and this is the Miller 200. And the field slows down under caution. It'll be interesting to see what happens here in the final 50 laps.
Well, a bad break for Scott Walters gives us a chance to take a break, and we will do just that here in the Miller 200 from Toledo Speedway with just about 50 laps to go. Don't you dare touch that dial. Back here at the Miller 200. Dick Westfall watching the field circulate as the safety crews are dropping some stay dry for the Scott Walters engine that just let go a couple of moments ago for our 7th caution of the afternoon.
Big story in the pit lane right now. Roby's working on the story right now.
But Coleman, the leader, is parked on the outside of the inner quarter-mile track with major problems on his car. It looks like the right front tire. They're changing that. He may have a suspension problem. Robbie's trying to get in a position so that he'll be able to give us a report on that. But this race has changed here at lap 158. A man who looked like he was going to dominate it is now going several laps down.
Just moments ago, Frankie Grill, Dick Anderson's crew chief, said, yeah, we can contend if we get some breaks. Well, there's one of the breaks he has to have. Anderson is up to second with Scott Hansen now the new race leader. And just that quick, the complexion of this race has changed, and what a heartbreak for David Kuhlman, who was running so well. Let's go to the pits with Roby for an update.
And the report from Dave Coleman's pit, a broken right front ball joint on car number 24. That's the story with it. Put the leader out. Back up to you in the booth.
This track is a bit rough and looks like it has taken its toll. The right front quarter of the suspension, the ball joint, is what holds the spindle on the car. Don't know whether it was the top one or the bottom one, but I bet it was probably the bottom one because he was able to drive the car into the pits and hold it on its own weight on the lower AR.
And also Gary St. Amand, who was running in the top 5, came into the pits. Now he was fading a bit, so this may not have been a bad move for that veteran driver from Columbus, Ohio.
But he's giving up track position,
and that is
assuming the lead. So there are the 2 breaks that Dick Anderson may have needed.
Well, yeah, Amand was running a little bit further back, and he was fading, so he may have decided that unless I've got a better chance of working my way forward than trying to hang on to a car that's not handling well.
But he's always been a strong runner here, and we don't know whether he was trying to save the car at that juncture of the race, and obviously he had a mechanical problem, so he elected to go to the pits. But it is really surprising that we're kind of changing complexion of this race here in the latter stages.
In fact, he has done more than go to the pits. He has gone behind the wall. You saw him pull off the track just seconds ago. So a tough break for a man who always is a competitor in every late model series he competes in. This race is getting more interesting by the moment. Mike Fritz in the Janiking car, he's back out there. He was part of our 6th yellow involved with Shane Rice. Looks more like a Northern Modified.
Still rolling the cars around under yellow here and extended as we continue to try to clean up the racetrack.
Also in on this sequence of pit stops is Dennis Berry and also John Crow, who we saw a few moments ago being passed by Mario Goss. And our friends at Miller Beer, in addition to the title sponsor of this race, are sponsoring a season-long rookie awards program called the Rookie of the Year. Now, at the end of the season, the rookie with the most points will take home a check for $10,000. And in addition to that money, $1,000 goes home each race to the top finishing rookie. And so far in the rookie point standings, David Jude is the race leader, or is the Rookie of the Year leader at this juncture, but did not make today's field. Also in the standings in second place is Randy Renfro, who is not in today's race. So the rookie battle is one we'll watch throughout the course of the season. David Jude has the best angle on it at this moment, but this will only be the 1/4 mark of the season when we see the checkered flag this afternoon. And the big story right now, Bill, will be how this restart unfolds and how good a jump Scott Hansen gets.
38 laps are remaining when they come back to the green flag. Matt Kenseth has fought his way back up to 3rd place. Fred Phillips is in there, and Tim Ice is there. Randy Fox is down on the inside of the restart along with Darrell Shelnut and Shane Rice, and the green's flying.
And let's see if Anderson can get around Fox right away, and he does. So there'll be a clear racetrack between 1st and 2nd place. And there'll be good battles all the way through the top 5 now, but this is the one we'll be watching to see if Dick Anderson and the changes he made at mid-race were the ones he needed to overtake Scott Hansen from Wisconsin.
Frankie Grill, the man who built the chassis on this car, of course, synonymous with the Alabama gang, having built chassis for Neil Bonnet and the Allisons over the years, has put an excellent machine beneath this Avenger body. And right now, Joey Arrington's motor is certainly proving that it has the horsepower. Will he have enough time to capture the victory?
This is the first time this season that Scott Hansen has led a Hooters Cup race. We've We've talked with him on several occasions as he continues to make the adjustments to this series, and he's said that this is a totally different kind of racing for me. He said, you've got to understand, I've come over from ASA where the races are 300 or 400 laps. I've had to adjust my style to what for me is more of a sprint race. And he said that is still something I'm getting used to, and how I have to change my race car to adapt accordingly. He's opening up a little bit of an advantage over Anderson. Not much, but a couple of car lengths is a lot of room over that Mopar Dodge.
Lots of drivers are getting serious here in the closing laps of this event. Hansen and Anderson running 1 and 2. Freddie Query has finally fought himself up into the top 10. But their battles all the way around as Jody Ridley goes down the back straightaway and goes by Tim Ice to pick up 5th place.
And with the problems that Billy Bigley has had throughout the afternoon, and the fact that Query is back in the pack just ever so slightly, Kenseth sits in a position to take over the series points lead. He is now sitting in the 4th spot as Fred Campbell has gotten by him. Campbell having another strong run, only the 2nd time he's run with the Hooters Cup Series. He won the 1st time. Kenseth doesn't want to give up 3rd, but he's had to do it, trying to get it back now. The battle for 3rd is joined again, entering turn 3, as Hansen and Anderson continue 1 and 2, and Kenseth is able to get the spot.
And he had to use a little bit of his bumper coming off the 2nd quarter to go by the 70 car. Fred Campbell, the man that won at Lakeland, Florida, but Kenseth is on the move, even with damage on his race car. But back up front, there is the battle as they go across the stripe.
And right now, Kenseth needs a caution to make up that much track position. That's a lot of ground to reel in as the laps wind down. Now, Anderson has closed back again on Hansen. And there's a bump, and around goes our race leader as Anderson gets by clean and takes the lead, but the yellow is out. Now, and just like the last race, the battle for the lead, and the front-running car goes around.
One thing you've got to say now is that Hansen did a masterful job. He did a full 360 and comes back on the racetrack behind Kenseth. He did a phenomenal job.
Down to 4th. And we'll watch race officials to see if they make any adjustments in the running order. They do have that authority. We'll just keep our eye on that. But an excellent point that Hansen was able to keep it out of the wall. And is actually in 3rd place. I had him actually drop to 4th. He really is 3rd.
Anderson slows him down on the back straightaway, and Hansen comes up beside Kenseth. He would like to have his position back. It'll be interesting as we go to a split screen here to see the 2 drivers. No damage on the 53 car other than he may have gotten a little flat spot on the tires. But here we watch it on the replay. Anderson gets aggressive.
And there's 2 ways that can be viewed as well. They've been following each other for a number of laps, and Anderson watches Hansen's style when he gets back in the throttle. And if Hansen doesn't pick it right up when he did on the previous lap, Anderson's anticipating it, and that's a possible explanation for that contact. Maybe not what happened, but it's possible it happened.
Well, you never can tell. In a situation like this, a lot of times a driver may check up on you. He may not be able to get on the accelerator as quickly as he did on the previous lap, but they are going to put Hansen back in front of Anderson. So he gets the position back, which made him the leader. And now
we'll continue to watch this for just a moment here. That may have just been a message sent to Dick Anderson as Anderson now back on the point. It's something we'll watch. We've still got better part of 25 laps to go, so a lot can happen before we're done.
Each one of these races is filled with exciting action. When the racing series comes to a track near you, if you want to see the finest late model sportsman type series in the nation, the suggestion is be there. It's filled with action.
Now, there's $75,000 posted purse for every single one of the 20 races. That's $1.5 million if my math serves me right. And on top of that, $15,000 of it goes to the race winner, $7,500 for second. That's the best payout in late model racing. Let's go to the pits with Roby.
And we're standing by with Mike Garvey. And Mike, you had a problem with an accessory belt that put you out.
Yeah, we sure did, Roby. I tell you what, the Coors Light Silver Bullet was running good. We had a fan belt come off. Car started overheating. We tried to come in and change it, but it was a new motor we got. And we didn't have a spare belt to put on it, so fortunately we can't get back out there.
And we're going back to green, back upstairs to you, Mark and Bill.
Anderson gets a wonderful jump on that restart, opened up a 7-car length advantage just that quick with 21 laps remaining. This time by 21 laps for Dick Anderson as he tries to seek his first win of the year and atone for a major wreck last year which sent he and his car owner to the hospital. And notice his hood buckled a little bit from that Hansen contact. And it'll be interesting to see if Hansen, first of all, can catch up to him, and then if he can do anything or will do anything to Anderson if he does.
Well, Dick Anderson calling on everything that Joey Arrington Mopar motor has to offer as the Citrus Chrysler Plymouth Dodge Avenger leading here, trying to avenge, of course, the injury he received at the racetrack last year. And Jody Ridley having an excellent run.
Jody Ridley very quietly has snuck into the top 5. The only man to finish every lap of every race so far this year appears on his way to a strong finish this afternoon as Hansen is strong again. He has closed up to within just a couple of car lengths of Anderson. Pat Kenseth is about another 7 car lengths back in 3rd, and it's Fred Campbell and Jody Ridley. Tim Ice sits back in 6th. That gives you a relative perspective of where the top 10 cars are running on the speedway.
Hansen is picking up the throttle a little earlier, trying to get his car off the corner. It gets a little loose with him last lap, but he is gaining ground on Dick Anderson. A little further back, there's Darrell Sheldon, along with Hal Goodson, the All-Pro champion, the Hooterade entering 4th Thunderbird from the driver out of Darlington, South Carolina. But the action is up front as Hansen is now within a half a car length.
And Anderson knows he's got all he can handle. These are 2 veterans that have won a great number of races coming from the back, leading from the start. They have excellent strategy from the pits. 2 excellent drivers. And this is the way it ought to be settled, right here between 2 of the very best in late model racing. Scott Hansen, in 6 ASA races here, has won 3 of them. He really knows how to get around this place when his tires get warm.
Well, certainly this is a classic battle between the North and the South. Who will win the skirmish here at Toledo, Ohio this afternoon? Anderson's Mopar Performance Dodge trying to draw away from Hansen. Hansen is right there to try to hound him each and every lap.
And the question is, as we head down toward approximately 10 laps to go, as Hansen has closed, and he will try to start using race traffic where possible to see if that can give him any break.
Fritz allows the Dodge to go to the high side of the racetrack along with Hansen, but Kenseth is closing up now. Kenseth, right out of frame, is riding in 3rd place and gaining. We'll see the nose of his car in just a second, and there he is.
This time by 11 laps to go. There's the top 5. Anderson, Hansen, Kenseth, Campbell, and Ridley. It looks like it will be settled between the top 3 drivers. Ice, Query, Goodson, and Sanders having an outstanding run. All these drivers should be proud no matter where they finish in the top 10. This is a tough racetrack and a very tough field as Anderson opens up a little bit of an advantage once again, but here comes Hansen charging on the march out of turn 4. Kenseth right behind him, and Ridley is closing up on 4th place Campbell. We've got great battles in the top 5.
When they come by this time, there should be 9 laps remaining at the flag. 9 laps remaining.
And Hansen is as close as he has been since the restart. And it looks like those 2 cars are strong in different portions of the racetrack, Bill.
They sure are. It's amazing how well Hansen can get off the corner and how well the Dodge is getting into the corner.
And Dick Anderson will be a mighty tough man to get around as we're inside of 10 laps to go in round number 5 of the Hooters Cup Series, the Miller 200 from Toledo Speedway. The season opener at this racetrack, and I don't think anybody's going to be asking for their money back. Anderson, Hansen, and now Kenseth insinuating himself into the leaders' battle. Kenseth led this race early until being involved in the first caution. He has been trying to get back up front ever since.
The outside of Jimmy Cope, who has a very wounded race car. A number of laps now just trying to salvage points. We're getting down to almost just a few laps remaining as This one is winding down, and we have seen a barn burner of a battle, especially in the last 100 laps. How many are there to go?
5 laps, 2.5 miles around the speedway. And one of these two men, and maybe a dark horse, Matt Kenseth, will drive to victory lane. Race traffic will play a factor, as Hansen right up on the rear deck of the race leader. They will catch slower traffic. It will be a factor. 4 laps to go.
John Crow blocks the way right in front of them, 2 abreast, and now Hansen goes to the bottom of the racetrack.
There may have been a touch, but I don't think so, as Hansen lifted. And Anderson, 3 laps to go. 3 laps going upstairs. Hansen will go to the high side as well. Now Crow becomes a block to the front 2 cars. And Hansen has to worry about Matt Kenseth. But no, he's looking out the windshield. He wants the win. 2 laps to go, as they will clear Dennis Berry, and Hansen will get a clear track to try to chase down Anderson. A lap and a half to go.
Coming up on some traffic now, working out of the 4th quarter. Hansen will get close, but not close enough to use the crawl point here. The final lap of competition, the white is waving.
And on the backstretch, our front 2 cars. Dick Anderson still has the advantage. Hansen will close as far as he dares. He'll give it his best shot. They come off forward to the checkered flag, and it is Dick Anderson, the winner, round number 5, in a terrific race.
Hansen raced him very, very cleanly, as we told you earlier. Dick Anderson injured here last year, not in a racing accident, but being involved in the pits when a car out of control injured himself, and his car owner, Buddy Foster, has avenged Toledo Speedway and has won in the Dodge Avenger for the first time in 1996.
You took my line. That's what I was going to use. Dick Anderson has 15,000 reasons to be a happy man this afternoon. That's the winner's check. It's the biggest check he's seen in quite some time, as the front 3 cars will pull into the winner's circle. That will give us a chance to talk to them and to some of the other competitors in a terrific race. The Hooters Cup Series late model action at its very best. And today, the best in class was Dick Anderson. And all 3 of the drivers in the top 3 positions led this race at one point or another.
Everybody stopping here on the front straightaway. Anderson looking for victory lane, where Scott Hansen and Matt Kenseth already are. The big circle painted white on the front straightaway. But the Mopar team has to be happy.
And we'll be back to talk to the winners and the almost winners here at Toledo Speedway when we come back. And there's the man who's done it this afternoon, coming from a deep start, 18th position, to pick up $15,000. And Roby Helm is with the winner of round number 5.
Dick Anderson, this time, the last time we raced here at Toledo Speedway, about 50 yards from where we're standing, you were kind of laying on the ground with 12 broken ribs and a cut face. What a difference a year makes.
Well, Roby, I felt like this place owed me. These scars on my face and all are from this place. So it's a good win for me. Thank you.
After all the problems that you've had earlier this season with the engine problems, is the 92 team, is it back now?
Oh, yeah, we're back. We had some engine problems and got them all squared away, and we've always had a great car and a great team. So we're back now. We'll be competitive the rest of the season.
Tell us about the first half of the race, Dick. It seemed like you just kind of came out of nowhere. We got into the second half, and then all of a sudden, bang, you're up there in third. Did you catch some breaks along the way, or were you just biding your time?
Not really. I started so far back, Roby. I was never biding anything. I was running as hard as I could run the whole race. I feel bad there. I got into Scott Hansen there coming off the corner. He eased up out of the gas or something. I don't know what happened, but I definitely didn't do that intentional. And I hope he realizes that, because he's a great race car driver. Did a good job. My congratulations to him, too.
Dick, on the last 3 laps, you got into heavy lap traffic. Did that concern you at all? Did you have a contingency plan for that?
Well, it definitely concerned me, because, all it takes is for one of them to make the wrong move. And Scott, being the good race car driver he is and all, one wrong move by a lap car that moves me out of the way, and he's got the win. So naturally I was concerned, but I've got a lot of experience, and sometimes when you get into situations like that, experience is really a big help.
Well, Dick Anderson, we're going to let you celebrate your first victory of the year, your 5th overall, and Dick Anderson will take over as the career leader in wins in the Hooters Cup Series with victory number 5. We'll be back with more post-race comments right after this, so stay with us from Toledo Speedway.
Tell you what, it's a good thing that blanket is tied down, or she might be blown into Lake Erie. It's been that kind of afternoon here. A lot of drivers have had their hands full just keeping their car under control with gusts of wind in excess of 30 miles an hour. I'll tell you what, if it was cold here today, that wind chill factor would be brutal, but it has been just gorgeous in the mid-70s, and certainly a great afternoon for Dick Anderson. Not so bad afternoon for some other drivers. Let's go back trackside to Roby Helm.
And we're standing by with Matt Kenseth. Matt, you were second in the points coming into today's race. 3rd place finish. That's going to probably help you a little bit with Freddie Query.
Yeah, well, we run the best we can. We like to win these races and figure the points will take care of themselves. But I tell you what, this Wagner Automotive car, the motor was running super. Left-hander chassis was working good, and thanks to Grease Lightning for coming on for this race. And we had a really good car. It was just circumstances and inexperience this track that hurt us a little bit today, but we'll take 3rd out of it.
Tell us a little bit about the Grease Lightning thing. They were just putting the decals on about 2 minutes before gentlemen start your engines.
Yeah, they approached me right before the start of the race because their car didn't end up making the feature. So just a one-race deal to help them out because their car wasn't in, and helped us out to pay some bills too. So we really appreciate it.
Matt, you kind of had an up and down day. You started out with the early lead, and then you got involved in a tangle with some the back markers in the field coming off of 4. We've got a pretty strong wind blowing across the speedway from turn 2 to turn 4, about 30 miles an hour. Did that have any effect on that?
I don't think so, but it was kind of unfortunate. We were just kind of riding around there, and I slowed down and missed the wreck. And I have a bad habit of slowing down too much for the wreck sometime, and just got to take from behind and got turned around. But we recovered. I really got to thank my crew and all my guys. They got everything back together, and I overcompensated for the setup a little bit on a pit stop, but we had a good run.
Well, when you stayed out on the racetrack, you came back in at the halfway point. What kind of changes did they have to make?
Well, I tightened the car up a little bit. I was afraid it was going to get greasy there at the end, and I probably shouldn't have done that. At the end we got a little too tight, and then a header pipe broke with 30 laps to go. It slowed us up a little bit, but I don't know if we would have had anything for them guys anyway.
Well, Matt, good run today, a 3rd place effort. Now, what about that wind? Could you feel that wind coming off of 4?
Well, the wind? No, I didn't feel any wind here, but it's hard to tell. I don't have enough laps here to tell. We just were running as hard as we could the whole time.
All right, Matt Kenseth home with a 3rd place finish, and we'll be back with more post-race comments right after these messages. Stay tuned. We'll have more from the Miller 200 at Toledo Speedway.
Out there, what do you think?
There is vindication for Dick Anderson this afternoon in the Miller 200. We hope you've enjoyed the coverage. We're not done yet by any means. We've still got some territory to cover, but we covered 200 laps, event-filled laps around Toledo Speedway, and a Southern regular, I think maybe to our surprise a little bit, Bill, has been able to drive to victory only the 2nd time this year. As we take a look at the late action in this afternoon's race, in fact, I believe we're going to see the final. We're actually going to see the last lead change. This is Dick Anderson, contact with Scott Hansen, and from there, Hansen got as close, maybe even touched him once, but that was as close as he got.
Well, the call has to go out. Scott Hansen on a beautiful driving job that he was able to accomplish there once he went around, because he came back up in 3rd place on the racetrack.
Scott Hansen, nary a mark on that race car. He will take home $7,500 for 2nd place. And Fred Campbell, our 4th place finisher, is down trackside with the intrepid Roby Helm.
Thank you very much, Mark and Bill. Fred Campbell, I guess it's even now. We opened the season down at Lakeland, Florida, and you came down there being the northern boy coming down to the south. You won that race, and now up here today at your home track, Toledo Speedway. Dick Anderson has come home with the win. You got a lot of laps around this place. What kind of a day was it?
It was pretty normal for Toledo. This place, there's a lot of crashing and banging, and there's no outside groove, and there's no room to race. And what you saw today pretty much is normal here.
Now, Fred, you've run with us twice this year. Are we going to see you again in that Port City car?
We hope so. Maybe later on in the season. We'd like to run all of them, but we all kind of work for a living and can't get down south every weekend. It's a great series and a great bunch of drivers, and you'll see us again.
Fred, I know that you run regularly with the Iceman series, and when the Hooters Cup guys come up here, we really play it up as the North versus South. Is there a lot of respect between the two groups of drivers?
Oh yeah, there sure is. And I mentioned last year when the Hooters Cup come up here, due to the late model digest, reading about all these guys in the paper, you see them every week. It's almost like you know them, and then when they get up here and you get to talk to them, it's pretty neat.
And you say to talk to them, it's pretty neat. What about to race with them?
Oh, that's great. They're a great bunch of racers, and they're tough. Don't let nobody kid you. They're tough guys.
Well, Fred, congratulations on a good effort. It was kind of an up and down day for you, so thanks again. Fred Campbell, 4th place finisher, back upstairs to Mark and Bill.
I'll tell you what, you enjoyed the action here this afternoon. You need to join us in May for some great racing on the Hooters Cup circuit. Bring the kids and the dog. Heck, bring Grandma for some good old-fashioned family fun. May 3rd and 4th flies Hooters Cup racing at New Smyrna Speedway in Florida for the Rudd Ream 200. The green flag drops at 8 p.m. And then we move to beautiful Hickory, North Carolina, May 24th and 25th for the Skoll Racing 200. And once again, the race time is 8 p.m. An important point to bring up, we've done some unofficial math here in the booth, Bill, and between leading a lap, for which he gets 5 bonus points, and for qualifying on the outside pole, for which he gets 4 points, Matt Kenseth has unofficially, according to our math, taken the series points lead by 3 markers.
Well, it wasn't by much, but you've got to remember one thing. Freddie Query came in here, had to fight through a consolation race, a last chance race, to end up in 8th place. He is still very much in the points hunt. Kenseth and himself now are almost virtually tied, but it's going to get tighter as the season goes along just because of the caliber of the drivers and the machines in the Hooters Cup Series.
Well, once again, the difference between the pole and the 20th place qualifier, who did not have to go through the qualifying races, was just a quarter of a second. So even a little teeny bobble can put you in those qualifying races and make it very difficult to get to the front, and that's the problem that Freddie Query had this evening. Once again this afternoon. We need to get a little bit of darkness in here. I'm so used to nighttime racing, but if we see the daytime racing like this, we may want to run them all in the afternoon. Now, Roby's been chasing down some of the top 5 finishers, and once again, Mr. All-Pro and the Skoll driver, Jody Ridley, has done it. Roby, what's he got to say?
Well, Jody Ridley, kind of a steady day for you today. Usually we see you come all the way from the back, but you had a pretty good qualifying run. Started about midway through the pack, came up and finished 5th. How was your day today?
Well, it's pretty good. We got hung up in the beginning, and the car cross-stepped, and I lost about 4 or 5 spots, and I picked that back up. But I had a good car all day, and we tweaked it a little bit on the halfway, the intermission there, and it was really good from then on. But, we just ran out of laps, but we're going to take 5th. We had a pretty good day.
And those are the thoughts of Jody Ridley, and we'll be right back after these messages, so stay with us. We'll be back with more post-race comments from Toledo Speedway in the Hooters Cup Miller 200.
Victory in round number 5 goes to Dick Anderson, with Scott Hansen, Matt Kenseth, Fred Campbell, and Jody Ridley rounding out the top 5. And that's the story from Toledo Speedway, where we've seen another great Hooters Cup race here on Prime. So long, everybody.